Hello and welcome to our next installment of Families Taking Charge, a program brought to you by both A Father's Place and the Mumford Institute. We are so glad that you're here. This is a live show today, and I want to remind everybody as we're going along through this interview, any questions that you might have, feel free to type them in, and we'll be looking for them. Our guest today is Officer Tyrese Neesmith. She's been with us previously. We're glad to have you again.
I'm glad to be back.
Officer Neesmith spoke with us previously about youth and the effect of social media on youth and what all it means. And I would refer you to the interview immediately prior to this one for further information about that topic. Mm-hmm. But today we want to change the emphasis just a bit, still about youth, but we want to talk about the role parents and grandparents and other adults might have with respect to youth. Because, let's face it, children look to their adults for their role models. Mm-hmm. And it is so different today than has been the case in the past. Golly, I mean, humans have always been humans. Humans are always humans. What's changed is that about 10 years ago, teenagers and young children now have cell phones. They can take pictures anywhere, anytime. People are, whatever you're doing, you might be getting photographed. So there's, to me, a greater sense of responsibility on both parents and grandparents to be more aware of what they're doing and how it might affect the youth. In your job, which has, you mentioned previously, involves working with seniors, mm-hmm. You see a lot of activities that adults do that no doubt affect children. What, if anything, as an overall summarization, would you say to parents and grandparents about how important it is that they remember that they're role models for children?
Practice is safe. Teach your children how to be safe online. Let them see you putting those things into practice. The best example I can think of right now is just the spyware. Making sure that you have spyware, make sure that you have a secure system at the home, and then show them how to use it. Also, in just not giving out free information about yourself. I know us, we're a little bit older, and we tend to think, we're okay and we're immune, but we're not. So if your kids see you, they're going to mimic the behavior, just giving out all of your information. So, just to be a cautionary tale is just be cautious about what you do because, like you say, our children, we are their mentors. They're watching us. So we need to make sure that they are watching us be safe.
Let me go to the grandparents for just a minute. I'm back to that thing about 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. I don't know when phones first became fairly commonplace, but I'm thinking about 10 years. For grandparents, this is overwhelming because so many grandparents have no idea what is available out there. And there, as you know, are many grandparents today who they didn't plan to, but they're now rearing some children.
Correct.
And what would you say to these grandparents who feel so behind? It's like a foreign language. They're behind the curve. What would you say to how do they get up to speed so they know how to do their job as grandparents?
It was actually almost about 15, 20 years ago.
Has it been that long?
Yes, sir. I remember when I first started my job at the bank, my son was almost a year, and that's when I got my first cellular phone. But anyway, so he's about in his 20s. So it's been about 20 when they started coming. Oh. That's when the color phones came out. You had the color screens. But the numbers are rising. That is encouraging that you have more senior citizens and elderly people that are using social media as well as phones just in general. I just saw the Jitterbug commercial. They finally upgraded from the flip phone that they've had forever to now a smartphone device. Oh, really? It's still kind of tame, but it still gets them out there. But, children are smart. Use them to your advantage. Some universities, some local civic groups, some churches, they put on any type of seminar. I would look out for stuff like that. You can go, I'm pretty sure, to any police department. They would help you, any school. You can ask the teachers. The teachers don't mind help you navigate things because as we saw with COVID, we all had to learn how to, log into certain websites that we're not used to logging into. So the best advice I can give is just make sure that you reach out. Don't just sit like, I don't know. There's a lot of information out there, and even if it's just a simple Google search, how do I do and fill in the blank, that would help you a lot to be able to figure out some of the things that are going on.
By the way, not to make anybody nervous, but there are people in Germany who are watching this now. There are people in other countries watching this. Would it be that they too could go to their local, you think, schools or police departments or whatever and find this kind of information to help educate them?
They should. I know local libraries as well. I forgot about them. Most of the time, it's probably going to be like a civic group or a church or something like that. But if they go to the police department and they don't, I'm pretty sure the department can refer them to wherever they can get some information.
Now, you have told us previously that you're involved in a group or program inside the police department called Senior Watch.
Correct.
In that capacity, you have occasion, I'm sure, to see particularly grandparents who get themselves caught up in nefarious kinds of schemes in which they become either the victim or the perpetrator. Can you tell us some of those kinds of issues and concerns that grandparents should be watching for?
Absolutely. The biggest issue we have is the scams. There are a bunch of them. You have the IRS scam. You still have the lottery scam. You have the fake scam where they take a picture of you with your webcam and say you looked at a porn site, and so they use you to extort money from you that way. There's a scam, the love scam. They find the people that are lonely, like, it's innocent enough when someone passes away where that information goes out across the world. It's on the super information highway. So now they know you're widowed. So they're going to start reaching out to you and, I'm sorry for your loss, and just offering condolences. The next thing you know, you think you're in a romantic relationship and you're being scammed. So there's a number of scams that are out there, and that is the biggest. It's almost, as a matter of fact, it is. Last year it crossed the $1 billion mark.
Wow.
And how they're able to get money from people just simply by asking. They're just giving them what they want, the romance, or there's, they make you feel that you're in trouble with the IRS or your bank. Hey, we need to verify your information. Clicking those links. I tell everybody, never click a link. Go to whatever if your bank contacts you on a website, and they send you an email, and you go just click out of that and go to your bank and do it that way. That would cut down on a lot, but it's something simple that we can do to protect ourselves, but we got to take those measures to do it.
Well, it's almost as if you have to be more vigilant than normal. The other day, for example, I got on my cell phone, I get this message that says, "Hi, what was it? Your credit card has been compromised. And of course, it was a very serious voice. That your credit card has been compromised. Press 1 so we can validate your number. I mean, you hardly even think. You just, almost react to that.
It puts you in a state of you're now nervous, and you stop thinking. But I tell you, just calm down a second. Call your bank directly or get home and log onto your bank, directly and find out what's going on. They do use text messages. They do call you sometimes when they suspect suspicious activity. However, they're not going to ask you your passwords. They're not going to ask you for access to your account. They're not going to ask you your account number or your social. So those are red flag questions. They start asking those questions. It's not real. Hang up the phone.
Somebody told me one time that there are some countries on the planet of which the greatest amount of economic income they derive, the greatest source of their income, is from doing scams on American people. Is this true?
It's true, unfortunately, yes, sir.
Amazing. And so they are, I say they, I don't know who these thieves are. They're obviously crooks and thieves, but they're so adept at marketing that they're able to train someone for whom English is not their primary language and do such a good job of it that they can sound convincing on a phone call?
They're very good people, if that's the thing. they're good at reading people. And so, the grandparent scam, they'll call you and says, hey, your grandson is in jail, okay? They know how to ask that question with such authority and conviction. Then you feed them the information. Who, James? Now you're giving them that. Yes, James, yes. Remember when he was going to, he told me he was going to.
One of those psychic readings.
Right. You're feeding them the information, not realizing you fed them the information, plus whatever information they got offline. So they already know, that I'm going to the Olympics. That actually happened. This was one of the things that happened. That's why I was able to recall it. But they knew he was going to the Olympics. When she fed him the name, they went through it, and she was about to wire like $5,000 to get him out of jail. And she thought about it right before, and she came to the police department. We're like, thank you, didn't do that. And we were able to reach him by phone. He was just asleep, But yeah, it happened. So it's always just take a breath and then do whatever you can to try to figure out, is this real or not?
You or someone was telling me about somebody, one of these lonely seniors who had sent like $15,000 or $20,000 to this. I guess it was a guy. He sent it to some lady, and he had yet to see her. She was going to come, but then something happened, and this, and
he's convinced he's in love. Put her through school and everything, and I have told him myself, do not send any more money. But he is convinced she's in trouble, and he has to help. They're just good. Scam artists are good people. Just like you got, I hate to say it, the stereotypical, the shiesty car dealership guy. When you go, they know how to read people's body language. Well, these people just do it over the phone. And once they get the information they need, they know how to exploit that. So it's up to you. If it's too good to be true, old school rules, then it most likely is. And just do your research. Go find and make sure if this is even a thing.
Well, for the average 14-year-old who sees granddaddy doing these things, what message does that convey to the child?
If it's an educated child, then they're gonna pretty much, Grandpa, stop being stupid.
Oh, really? You think so?
I've seen it on like those shows, 90 Day Fiancés and something like. That's not a guy. Like, you're being catfished, because the show Catfish is on MTV, very popular show. But if they are uneducated, which is kind of probably where your question is going, you're training them to probably follow the same methods that you have unknowingly. They're well, he clicked on it, he came out fine. So we got to be careful.
There are also, are there not, people for political or religious extremist reasons or whatever who get on the internet and are able to, they're adults, and so they're able to convince teenagers about some radical idea or notion or philosophy. How do you have parents or grandparents be looking for that kind of thing?
Well, just like I mentioned in the last show, you gotta know your kid. You gotta stay on top of your kid. Open dialogue, communication is always good. The phrase "knowledge is power" is the best thing. Show them how to find things. Plagiarism was the biggest thing when I was in middle school, I believe, and we were taught to research your facts, and I still use that and regurgitate that to everybody I can. You have religious groups or political groups. I tell them, go find it. If you can't find it other than that one news article that is very jaded, then it's probably not true, or it's skewed. So go look, find it, and if you can't, then you're enlightening yourself. I'm not telling you, you're learning it for yourself. And then they can teach themselves as they go forward through life to always look at everything, research everything, find it. You're going to find it in more than one spot. If you don't find it in one, there's probably something wrong. Well,
so with grandparents or seniors, it tends to be more of the victim of scams and that kind of thing. What kind of activities that are not proper role model activities do grandparents tend to do that they really don't give any thought to, not realizing the effect it's having on this grandchild who's watching them?
I would say giving out too much information. We push that agenda so much with children and the youth that we tend to forget. We got to start telling our parents, stop telling all your business. Like, oh, we went to this church today. Oh, we're going here. They like post it minute by minute. They're almost worse than the young kids. So if grandma does it, mom does it, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal. But then you try to come explain to them how that's dangerous, but then they're watching you do it. So that would be, I would say, the biggest thing is just you still have to self-police yourself and make sure that you are making good decisions in front of your children, so when you try to talk to them about it, then y'all are going to be on one accord.
Is that sort of, don't do as I do, do as I say?
A little bit. A little bit. It still works.
You never heard your parents say that,
Of course they have. I say it. Trying to save them.
Oh, yeah, I bet. Well, what about parents who engage in various and sundry activities that might have a negative effect on their children? What are some of those activities that parents engage in?
About the same. Online dating is the biggest thing now, and it isn't let's go down to the mall and let's meet. It's you meet a guy and you send him your address, or y'all meeting in places. So I would say in that demographic it would be just they're a little bit too friendly, still a little bit too much information out there. Also just like with the researching thing, I have to still school my parents. I'm like, when my mom brings something to me, my very first thing is, did you read the article? Did you look up what the law said? Find out what it is. It's a constant conversation. It's not talk to them one time. So, I always tell them the best thing to do is to always just research your facts. Make sure you know what you're talking about. So with our parents, if you're spewing some stuff to your kid and they've heard somebody else say different, then it's kind of give them a little bit of a skewed view of what it could be. But if you've taught them to look things up, then they may come to you and say, hey, Mom, I heard you talking to your friend, or I saw what you posted on Facebook. That's not actually true. And this is true story. We've had to do that. And then pull up what actually is, and it's like, oh, okay, it was, it's like a bonding moment, so to speak, but now the children have become the teachers.
Well, help me with this, because it seems, maybe this is just my impression, but as a citizen of this county, it seems to me that in the last, 6 months, police authorities have arrested 2 or 3 different people for various kinds of pornography type of activity or sexual exploitation of minors. Mm-hmm. Is this more prevalent, or is it just being better reported?
I think it's being better reported. It's always been around, but now it's out there. Before, like you say, 10, 15, 20 years ago, it was happening. You heard about it, but you just didn't see it. Now it's in live and living colors, full blast. So I think it's more out there now for people to see.
Well, is there more of a problem with parents, or particularly males, I assume it's mainly males, who engage in looking at pornographic sites? And how in the world what kind of impression could that possibly make on their child?
Well, I would hope that they're not looking at porn when their children are in the room. That's a whole different topic, but just if it's a family computer, there are still people that still use laptops or desktops. If that is something that you are doing, your browser is still there, so if they click through, they're going to see it. You're open to, and more susceptible to spyware, and then they go innocently on theirs, and now their stuff gets hacked. So it's a good idea. If that's what you're going to do, then have your own computer to do that on, because you're adults, you're allowed to do what you want. But if it's going to be something that your child has access to, your cell phone, your family computer, then I would not do it on those things, because you're opening up your computer to outside spyware, spamware, all kind of things. So we want to be able to protect them and their accounts. They don't have a lot going on. They don't have a credit score, but what they do have is important. So we don't want people stealing and hijacking their passwords and stuff and messing up their schoolwork. We want everybody to be able to do whatever they need to do in an environment that's supposed to be safe.
In this particular state, we have a department known as the Department of Social Services. Mm-hmm. Other states and other countries have different names for this. But
absolutely.
Do you find yourself as a police officer frequently interacting with the Department of Social Services with regard to these kinds of matters we were discussing, social media activities?
Absolutely, all the time.
What are some examples of that?
Most of the time it's going to be, now when it becomes, if it's a child pornography case, since we've already left off on that subject, that goes to ICAC, which is Internet Crimes Against Children. That's ran through the Attorney General's office for the state. So any type of electronic media that I get that involves a child, we send the case over to them and they prosecute it. If it's on the lower level and it's more or less like the flirting things, or most of the times it's the proof, is what, when it comes to DSS, where they see the exchange of pictures between an adult and a child, or just the conversations to meet at places, or things that have happened in the past, like, well, remember when we did, that's pretty much where the DSS side would come in on it. Then we also, with human trafficking and things like that, so we all work hand in hand, but on just the lower level, it's mostly going to start with either it's a past text, or it could be something that currently just happened. They get it, it gets in the right hands, and then they call us. We start the police report, and then we bring DSS in, and then, like I said, if it goes through ICAC, as it is, we send it to them and let them prosecute it federally.
We're getting some questions that are coming in to us from our listeners, but before I go to those, just one final question. What's a fairly typical case that comes to you? You're sitting in your office at the police department. How in the world do you get into a social media type of case? Is there a typical?
Typically it's going to go back on the scams. Those are the most ones we get. We have a lot of people that will call in, or they'll walk in and they'll say, hey, I sent some money to somebody, or I purchased something, and then the story goes from there. So most of the time that's what we get. As far as whenever I get cases with children involved, and that's when mom found pictures or dad found pictures of things that were not supposed to be on there, and then they contact us to take care of it. But most of the calls we get are going to be the scammers, the email scams about the lottery, the IRS, IRS and that they gave their information out, and now their accounts are being hacked.
Well, let's go to our first question. The first question is that you use the phrase self-police. What exactly does that mean?
That's the new word for the old school phrase, just check yourself. Make sure that you are taking care of your own house and your business. So when I say self-police, like I need to make sure that everything that I'm doing is into accordance to what my values are in my home. So, you know, if I know I'm teaching my children to be safe, then I need to make sure I'm being safe. It's kind of hard to, there we go back to do as I say, not as I do. It's kind of hard to say that when you're not doing it. So just make sure that you're in line with what you're supposed to do.
Both you and I wore military uniforms, and it reminds you of that old term, NCO, neat, clean, and orderly.
Yes, all the time.
Another question. What's the best app to use for the person who's asked this question to monitor my child's social media activity?
There are many sites out there. Right now, the number one, the last time I checked, was the Bark, B-A-R-K, just like a dog, Bark. It sends you alerts to anything, like you can put key phrases in, for example, let's say the word sex. If that pops up in your kid's text messages, it's going to send you an alert. It's going to send you an alert for dangerous emails, spyware, anything like that. There are a bunch of different sites. I can't say which one is the best, and I don't like to endorse one because I have one, but then I don't want people to say I'm trying to endorse one or the other. But if you do look up how to track my child's phone, just Google it, simple, or even if you just put in Bark right under the bottom, and all the rest of them are going to pop up. Find the one that suits you best. Some are free, some you have to pay for, but depending on your level of need, you might want everything. There are some apps that will give you everything off your child's phone. It will automatically send it to you. If they delete a text, it's going to send it right to you. And then they have some that are just going to notify you like, hey, or it'll block certain sites for you. So you kind of got to do your shopping as to what pertains to you. But I would say Bark would be a good start because that's the one that's all over all social media. It's everywhere. So it's a really good one. It is a paid site. You have to pay for it, but you're going to get good results with it.
I don't want us to get away from something that you've stressed each time we've spoken, and that's how important it is that the parent say to the child, I love you. Mm-hmm. You know, you're of value. You have meaning and you have purpose, and to discipline the child. Mm-hmm. I mean, you said that over and over again, and I know you get tired of me bringing it up again.
Not at all.
It's so critical because people. There are many of the grandparents who were reared by parents who did not say, I mean, you didn't say, I love you or hug your kid. This was not done for most of the grandparents. They weren't reared in that kind of culture. But in today's culture, it's just so critical because if you don't say it, somebody else is going to be saying it. Is that fair? Is that fair? That
is very fair. That is working with the Human Trafficking Task Force. That when they do debriefings with victims or survivors, as they call them, I'm sorry. A lot of it, when they tell their story of how it began, it is the simplest of things. It's not an elaborate ploy. It's just like you say, you're beautiful. You get those messages that you're not getting at home, and it tends to direct their attention to them. So we don't have to be, over the top. Over top is good. I'm not saying that's bad, but just, every now and again, just send your kid a text. I love you. I'm proud of you. I like how you made that decision. You're doing a wonderful job. You need to be at the forefront of their mind. That way, if anybody else comes this way, you've already taken up all of that attention. They're not going to get as much attention. But it always starts off simple. I watched a little girl, she was 16, and telling her story, and within 3 days, this guy's talked her out of her house. Like, she literally got her little money out of her piggy bank and left. And she was like, she says, looking back now, it wasn't hard at all. It was just the simplest of things. So, we have to, I'm pretty sure everybody has seen or heard memes or whatever, that if you elevate your children up here, these people down here can't get you. So talk to them, give them all the information they can, and constantly empower them, constantly communicate, keep that line of communication open, and you have less than the chance that the outsiders can be heard by them. You want your voice in their ear.
Well, I'm not speaking for parents now, I'm kind of speaking for grandparents, but most grandparents were reared with that old saying, children are to be seen and not heard.
And that's true sometimes.
So, you know.
It is a different dynamic. However,
it is.
Old school is not necessarily always bad. A lot of old school rules we've gotten away from that has protected us. It kept us. The latchkey kids is the best thing. You knew back in the day when mom said, leave that door locked, don't answer it. Nobody answers the door.
When mom said, be home when the lights come on.
And you were home when the lights came home.
That or you were dead. One of the two.
Right. You knew to not, but now kids tend to test boundaries. You know, the door gets open. Didn't I tell you not to open the door? Why is the door open? So, you know, there is a change, but grandparents can do the same thing. They can learn and they can adjust, but they can still be true to who they are. And that is only going to help and enhance the child. It's not going to hurt them, you know, but everybody has to be on board with the nurturing, with the education and the communication. And if you do those three, you're pretty much you're setting them up for success and not leaving them open for failure.
Wow, yeah, that's very profound. One final question. How do I know if a social media profile is fake?
Well, the very first thing, this is what they teach all the kids in school, so kids are up on this, so I need the parents and the grandparents to listen. When you look at the website bar where you type it in, it should see, once you click into a site, it's going to say HTTP, there should be an S. S stands for secure. So if you see HTTP with a semicolon and cute little lines, it's not a secure site, and you probably don't want to be on it. That will be the very first prevalent thing, because they do clone sites. A lot of scammers are using the identical site, so you want to look for the HTTPS. If it's not, log out and try again. If it doesn't come up, then it's not a secure site, and I wouldn't gamble on it. The other thing that I would see is look for misspelled words. Some of the clone sites, for instance, like we have like cash advance places, and I'm going to use this as an example. It'll say, cash advance at yahoo.com. That is a clue. It shouldn't say Yahoo or Gmail or anybody. It should say at cash advance. So you want the business name should reflect inside of the email. Misspelled words or all of a sudden like capitals and places that looks funny. If it looks weird, it probably is. Get out of it, don't log on it, and stay off of it.
Wow, that is such great information. Listen, I just want to thank you for coming and doing this interview. You've been such a tremendous source of wisdom for all of us who've watched this. And again, I want to thank you for your service as a police officer. It's a tough job.
It's a tough
police
job.
officers these days particularly. So I want to congratulate you on the job. You're doing really well, and to thank you. Now over to the CEO of A Father's Place, Mr. Wallace Evans Jr.
Round of applause for our great guest, Senior Master Police Officer Neesmith, and our great host, Mr. Wayne Mumford. My name is Wallace Evans Jr., as Mr. Mumford said, and I am the CEO of A Father's Place, where we engage fathers in the positive support of their children. Officer Neesmith gave us some excellent information on how to keep ourselves, and especially our children, safe on the internet, and how proper role modeling is critical for our children. The father factor cannot be overstated. Our screen use choices and habits greatly influence our children's screen use choices and habits. So as fathers, as men, let us commit to being the best examples for our children that we can be. They are always watching and they are always learning. Bob Keeshan said, parents are the ultimate role models for children. Every word, movement, and action has an effect. No other person or outside force has a greater influence on a child than a parent. These are some of the principles we share here at A Father's Place, because dads truly make a difference in the lives of children. If you are a father or know of one that would like to learn more about our work, please connect with us on Facebook, visit us on the web at afathersplace.org, or call us at 843-488-2923. If there's a particular subject you'd like for us to tackle, please email us at familiestakencharge@afathersplace.org. Thank you again so much for joining us. Thank you to A Father's Place team behind the scenes making everything run. Thank you to Officer Neesmith as well as Chief Long for lending such a great resource for us. And special thanks to our great host, Mr. Mumford. Until next time, remember what Princess Diana said, family is the most important thing in the world.